All right, so we're diving deep today into Mere Christianity. Probably one of the, well, most talked about books when it comes to exploring, the Christian faith.
Yeah, it's a classic for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people maybe have heard the title but haven't actually, dug into it.
I think that's right.
So that's what we're doing today, kind of a, a deep dive, really getting into some of the big ideas that C.S. Lewis was, wrestling with.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because it didn't start out as a book, right? This was a series of radio talks during World War II.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Trying to make sense of faith in the midst of all that chaos.
Exactly. So I think that context is important. It kind of sets the stage for the kind of clear, straightforward arguments he's known for.
Right. It's like getting down to the essentials. No fancy theological jargon. Just, core principles.
And I think that's why it still resonates with so many people today.
Totally. So to help us navigate this, we thought it'd be cool to pick out 5 of the most powerful quotes from the book, almost like a
roadmap.
Yeah, exactly. A roadmap to Mere Christianity.
Love it. Let's do it.
Okay, so quote number 1, and this one really sets the stage. The law of human nature is the most elementary and universal principle in morality. So what's this law of human nature all about?
Well, it's like Lewis is saying, look, there's this built-in sense of right and wrong that all humans share. It's not something we learn. It's something we know.
Okay, so it's not about following a set of rules from a book or something.
Right, exactly. It's deeper than that.
So it's even if we don't agree on everything, there's this underlying moral code.
Exactly, and he gives this great example, right? He talks about 2 people arguing, and even when we're in the wrong, we still appeal to some kind of fairness, don't we?
Yeah, that's not fair.
Exactly. It's like we're acknowledging there's a standard, a measure of how we should treat each other.
Okay, that's a great starting point. Let's move on to quote number 2. This one's a bit more, poetic maybe. I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else.
Wow. Yeah, Lewis was a master of using these vivid images, and I think this one really gets to the heart of how he saw faith.
It's not just about seeing the sun itself, but the sun allows you to see everything else.
Exactly. So for him, Christianity wasn't just this belief system. It was the lens through which he understood the entire world.
Okay, so it's not just believing in something. It's more about how that belief changes how you see everything.
Precisely. And I think we can all relate to that in some way, right? Whether it's a religious belief or even just a deeply held value.
Yeah, those core ideas, they definitely shape how we see the world around us. All right, on to quote number 3. And this one gets really specific. The Christian says, Christ died for our sins. Not merely that he died as a good man might die, as Socrates did, as Marcus Aurelius did. He died for them. So what's Lewis emphasizing here?
Well, I think he's really honing in on what makes Jesus's death unique. It wasn't just a tragedy. It was a deliberate act with a specific purpose.
Yeah, he even calls out these other historical figures who also died for their beliefs.
Right, because he's saying there's something different about Christ's sacrifice.
It wasn't just about dying for a cause. It was about, atoning for something.
Exactly. And this gets into some pretty deep theology. But basically, Lewis is saying that Christ's death bridges the gap between humanity and God.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack, but I think we're getting the gist of it.
Yeah, and of course there are many different interpretations of sacrifice and redemption in different faiths, but this is central to Lewis's understanding of Christianity.
Got it. Okay, moving right along. Quote number 4. The Christian ideal is not to be a saint, but to be Christ-like. This one feels more, practical maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I think Lewis is trying to ground us here. We often get caught up in this idea of perfect holiness, but he's saying, look, focus on being like Christ.
So less about striving for unattainable perfection and more about embodying those qualities of Jesus.
Exactly. Love, compassion, forgiveness. Those are the things we can strive for every day in all our interactions.
It's about the journey, not just the destination,
I love that. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, last quote. And this one might be the most challenging. The doctrine of hell is not a doctrine invented by sadistic priests. It is simply a statement of the obvious fact that if a man chooses to reject God's love, there must be consequences.
Yeah, this is heavy stuff.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's a topic that well, it can be really hard to talk about.
For sure. And I think it's important to clarify that Lewis wasn't talking about, like, a literal fiery pit.
Right. It's not about some kind of, like, divine punishment.
Exactly. He saw hell more as the natural consequence of consistently rejecting God's love.
Okay, so it's more about, like, the choices we make and the consequences that follow.
Right. If we truly have free will, then our choices must have real weight, both in this life and the next, according to Lewis.
It's a difficult concept, for sure.
It is, and there are definitely a lot of different interpretations of what hell might actually mean. But I think for Lewis, it boiled down to this idea that if we consistently choose to turn away from love and goodness, well, that has to lead somewhere.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. From this idea of a universal moral law, to the unique nature of Christ's sacrifice, to faith as a lens striving to be Christ-like, and even this challenging concept of hell. There's a lot to digest, but I think Lewis would be happy we're at least wrestling with these ideas.
I think so too, and that's what's so great about mere Christianity, you know? It sparks conversations, it challenges us, it makes us think.
It's definitely not a passive read.
No, not at all. And I think, if anything, it leaves us with more questions than answers.
Which is probably a good thing, right?
Definitely, because
Yeah.
those questions can lead us on our own journeys of discovery.
And hey, if we've sparked even a little bit of that curiosity in you today, I'd encourage you to pick up Mere Christianity and see what you think. See how it resonates with your own life, your own experiences, your own beliefs.
Yeah, give it a read. You might be surprised by what you find.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time.